Have you ever wondered why some really brilliant ideas just seem to fizzle out, while others, maybe just as wild, actually manage to take off and, change everything?
Yeah.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into loonshots, these kind of radical, often dismissed ideas, the projects that really challenge how things are done, but, well, they hold this huge potential for breakthrough innovation. Our mission here is to figure out how organizations can actually nurture these audacious ideas instead of accidentally killing them. We're drawing a lot from the insights in the book, Loonshots.
Exactly. And what's really interesting, I think, is that this isn't just about individual genius moments. It's more about understanding the systems underneath it all, the things that either help or, suppress these breakthrough innovations. We're going to look at why some places seem to become these natural loonshot nurseries.
Okay, you mentioned loonshots, and it's such a great term. For anyone listening who hasn't come across it, can you break down exactly what a loonshot is?
Sure. A loonshot, it's basically an idea or a project that most leaders, whether in science or business, they look at it and think, nah, that won't work. Or maybe, okay, maybe it'll work, but it won't really matter. It fundamentally goes against the grain, against conventional wisdom.
Right. And is this something new, or have these kinds of radical ideas always had a tough time getting accepted?
Oh, it's definitely not new, not at all. I mean, for a lot of history, you had truth basically dictated by authorities, right? Rulers, religious leaders, and political fights often just steamrolled early science. If you think about the big empires, China, Islam, India, they were like the majors.
Yeah.
But then you had Western Europe, this kind of fragmented, messy collection of nations, and weirdly, that chaos, that became the world's loonshot nursery for new ideas back then. In that sort of decentralized setup, new things could sometimes find a place to grow.
Which leads us to the pretty harsh reality for new ideas, both then and now. The book puts it pretty bluntly, doesn't it? In the real world, ideas are ridiculed, experiments fail, budgets are cut, and good people are fired for stupid reasons. It sounds kind of grim.
It can be, yeah. Companies fall apart and their best projects remain buried. It really can feel like a graveyard sometimes. And one of the sneakier threats is what the book calls the Moses trap. This is where ideas only really move forward if one powerful leader likes them, a sort of holy leader figure who champions loonshots, maybe because they just love the novelty, not necessarily because it fits a strategy.
Okay, the Moses trap. So if that's such a common problem, how do people or, organizations break free? Like, what's the antidote when your great idea is getting shot down?
Well, the antidote is kind of the opposite of what you'd expect. It means fighting that really strong urge to just defend your idea or dismiss the criticism when you're attacked. Instead, you have to investigate the failure or the criticism with a really open mind. Use active listening, ask why, keep asking why.
That's a really key point. Investigating instead of defending. And that connects to a really core insight from the sources, doesn't it? That small changes in structure rather than culture can transform the behavior of groups. It's not about pep talks, it's about the setup.
Exactly. Think about it like making steel. You add just a tiny bit of carbon to iron, and suddenly it's incredibly strong steel. Or adding nickel to steel for even stronger alloys. These are small structural tweaks, but they change the material's properties dramatically. It's the same idea for organizations.
That's a great analogy. And you see it play out, right? As companies get bigger, the personal stake someone has in a specific project's success might actually go down, while the benefits of just climbing the ladder, getting promoted, go up. So politics can start to matter more than the actual work.
Precisely. And this leads to something called project skill fit. Basically, if you're a good fit for a project, skill-wise, you're more likely to focus on the project itself. But if your skills aren't a great match, you might drift more towards the political game, trying to get ahead that way. It's interesting, McKinsey actually has a full-time team just focused on managing this project skill fit, trying to keep people engaged and make promotions less subjective.
Right, so it's about making sure the rewards line up with results, not just rank.
Exactly. It's about celebrating results, not rank.
And it's not just about promotions either. The idea of a wide management span comes up too. Managers overseeing more people. How does that help loonshots?
Well, a wider span tends to mean managers can't micromanage as much. It encourages more peer-to-peer feedback and problem solving. Controls are looser. There's more room for experiments. People within the teams have to work together more.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It kind of links to things like Malcolm Gladwell's magic number 150 or Dunbar's number, right?
Yeah.
About group size and how people interact effectively.
Yeah, there are definitely connections there about how group dynamics change with size and structure.
So this leads to another really fascinating concept, phase separation. like in physics, where two states exist together.
Hmm.
Applied to companies, the idea is separate your artists and soldiers and love your artists and soldiers equally. What does that mean in practice?
It means you need both groups. The artists are your Loonshot teams, the ones exploring the crazy new ideas, pushing boundaries. The soldiers are your franchise teams, the ones focused on executing and scaling the existing business, making it efficient. You need both, operating kind of differently, but you need a way for them to interact effectively. This creates what's called dynamic equilibrium.
Dynamic equilibrium, like a managed flow between them.
Exactly. A continuous exchange of projects, ideas, feedback between the artists and the soldiers. It's not a solid wall between them, it's a carefully managed interface. And this framework also helps us distinguish between two main kinds of loonshots. There's P-type and S-type.
Okay, P-type. That's the product or technology one, right? Like the original Netflix DVD service, or Amazon starting with books, or Pan Am pioneering airlines. And the book says their deaths, if they fail, are usually pretty quick and dramatic.
Right, whereas S-type loonshots, they're more about a new strategy or a new way of doing business, or maybe using existing tech in a totally new way. Think Facebook changing social interaction, Google's search business model, Walmart's logistics, or American Airlines frequent flyer program.
Okay. And their deaths are often slower, kind of creeping up on them.
Yeah, often more gradual, less obvious until it's maybe too late. But here's the critical warning for both types. As momentum builds, so does the tunnel vision. People get locked into the current success.
That tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Wow, it really seems to be a killer. Let's look at Nokia. It's wild to think they started with rubber boots and toilet paper in the 70s.
Yeah.
But by the early 2000s, they were the mobile phone company. Dominated the market. What went wrong?
It's a classic, almost tragic story, really. In 2004, Nokia engineers actually came up with an idea for an internet-ready phone. Color touchscreen, camera. Sound familiar? And another team proposed an online app store concept. Leadership, kind of stuck in their success, just shut both down. Too radical, didn't fit the current model.
Wow. 2004.
Yeah. 3 years later, Steve Jobs is on stage unveiling the iPhone. 5 years after that, Nokia was basically irrelevant in smartphones. They sold the mobile business in 2013, a massive loonshot failure.
Oof. Okay, contrast that with IBM. They had their own crisis, right?
Yeah.
T-type threat, when Keysight started killing their mainframe business in the 90s. But initially, they seemed to pivot really well. They jumped into PCs, became #1 super fast, huge sales.
They did. IBM launched its first PC in '81, and within 3 years, they had, what, $5 billion in sales from it? They looked like they'd nailed the transition. But then came the really critical mistake, the S-type blunder, maybe? They outsourced the software to this tiny company called Microsoft, and the microprocessor to another little company, Intel.
I see where this is going.
Yeah. Pretty soon you had all these PC clones using Intel chips and Microsoft software, and they just ate IBM's lunch. Market share plummeted. By '93, IBM lost over $8 billion, laid off huge numbers of people. 10 years later, they sold the PC business to Lenovo.
Now, Microsoft and Intel are worth, what, way, way more than IBM.
Oh yeah, combined, something like 10 times IBM's value today. A huge strategic misstep in managing the ecosystem around their P-type success.
Okay, let's talk Apple and Steve Jobs. Early Apple also struggled, right?
Yeah.
Before the Mac even. Atari and Radio Shack were outselling them massively in 1980. Market share dropped.
Yeah.
Then the Macintosh launched in '84. Iconic ad, but the product itself, flawed.
Yeah, the first Mac was slow, no hard drive, it overheated, it wasn't the instant smash hit people sometimes remember, and all that turmoil led to Jobs being pushed out in 1985.
Right. And then he went off and started NXT.
Yep, NXT. Technologically brilliant machine, apparently, but super expensive, nobody bought it. By '93, most of his top people had left. It looked like a failure.
And he also invested in Pixar around that time.
Yep. He did, in '85.
Yeah.
Became the main backer.
But Pixar almost died too, didn't it? I read Jobs wanted to shut down the animation part.
He absolutely did. He tried to sell the company, wanted to ditch the animation team. But Ed Catmull and that core group, they really pushed back. They resisted.
And then came Toy Story.
Then came Toy Story in 1995, first fully computer-generated feature film, John Lasseter's vision. And it was huge. A week after the premiere, Pixar's IPO just exploded, valued at $1.5 billion. Jobs suddenly owned $1.2 billion worth of it.
Wow. Talk about a turnaround. And that kind of paved the way for his return to Apple, right?
It did. Apple in late '96 was dying, almost bankrupt, tiny market share, huge losses. They bought NXT, mainly for its software. Jobs came back, first as interim CEO, then full-time, brought in Tim Cook. And the key thing, the sources argue, is that in his second run at Apple, Jobs had learned something crucial. He
Divest.
learned to love both the artists and the soldiers. He learned how to manage that dynamic equilibrium we talked about, nurture the crazy ideas, and execute flawlessly.
That brings us to Xerox PARC, another famous story. Xerox was innovation royalty in the 70s, right? First to hit $1 billion in sales fast from one tech, the copier. So they set a PARC to invent the future, and they did. But Xerox didn't capitalize on it.
Not really. PARC came up with the graphical user interface, the mouse, Ethernet, the laser printer, foundational stuff for personal computing, but almost none of it was successfully commercialized by Xerox. It became this innovation landfill, the brilliant people who developed the tech. Many of them left because Xerox wouldn't bring their products to market.
So again, it wasn't a lack of ideas.
No, the weak link wasn't the idea supply, it was the transfer of those ideas into the market. And the root cause. It wasn't bad people or a bad culture necessarily, it was the structure, the design of the system.
Okay, so structure is key. How do you actually design for breakthroughs? Let's look at DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, set up way back in '58. They seem to get that big organizations naturally resist radical stuff.
They really did. DARPA was set up very differently, kind of like a loose collection of small startups almost. Crucially, there was no real career ladder within DARPA itself. That basically removed the incentive to spend time playing politics to get promoted within DARPA. The focus stayed on the projects.
And look where their alumni ended up. Leading research at Google, Facebook, Microsoft.
Exactly. It shows the power of that structure.
So it really hammers home that incentives matter, maybe more than we usually think. And it's not always about money, right? It can be autonomy, visibility, maybe soft equity.
Absolutely. And DARPA itself showed this with that Red Balloon Challenge in 2009.
Oh, yeah, that was cool. Find 10 weather balloons hidden across the U.S.
Right. $40,000 prize. An MIT team found all 10 in under 9 hours, just 4 days after they even heard about it.
How'd they do it so fast?
They basically launched this instant online network with a really clever reward system. People reported sightings, got a cut if their lead panned out, and the person who invited them got a cut, and so on. It was brilliant structural design for rapid, distributed problem solving, open innovation in action.
It's amazing how these structural ideas echo things in, like physics. You mentioned phantom traffic jams, just a few too many cars, and boom, gridlock. Or dimples on a golf ball. Tiny structural change totally changes the airflow, ball goes way farther.
Well, wildfires, right? Wind speed, tree density. Hit a certain threshold, a small fire suddenly explodes. These are all phase transitions driven by subtle changes in the system's parameters or structure.
Just like in organizations.
Exactly. And this system's thinking, it lets you see things differently, like identifying, say, super spreaders in networks, not by knowing individuals, but by spotting patterns in the collective behavior. Or the whole field of econophysics or the physics of finance, using tools from physics to find hidden patterns in what look like random market movements.
It all comes back to understanding the underlying system, the structure.
It really does.
Which reinforces that core idea. The breakthroughs that change our world are born from the marriage of genius and serendipity. But the system has to allow for that marriage to happen. And adopting this system mindset, it helps you analyze the process of decisions, not just the outcomes. Understand why something failed or succeeded, and evaluate the decision separately from the result. So wrapping this up, we've seen how these radical ideas, these loonshots, often get shot down early on. But by focusing on structure, not just culture, by creating that dynamic equilibrium between the artists and the soldiers, and by learning from stories like Nokia, IBM, Apple, Xerox, DARPA, organizations can build environments where innovation thrives.
Definitely. And once you start to understand these phase transitions, these sudden shifts in behavior driven by structure, you can actually begin to manage them. You can nudge the system. That's the real power here.
So, the thought to leave everyone with today is this. Considering how powerful these subtle structural changes can be, where might you find hidden loonshots in your own work, or even your life? What small shift in incentives or just in the way a group interacts might unlock your next big breakthrough? Something to think about.